work. Hey guys, Kapper here, and today's video is going to be why I picked the Polaris Ranger XP 1000 over the other competitors. I really only looked at three of them seriously: the Honda 1000 Pioneer, the Can-Am Defender HD10, and of course the Polaris. So I'm going to try and lay it out to you on my reasoning and kind of show you the differences of each of the machines. But once you see my reasoning, it becomes pretty clear on why I think this is just hands down the best machine. So let's check it out.
It's 1 inch taller at 77 inches, 4 inches longer at 152 inches, and the wheelbase remains the same at 113 inches. Utilizing the same dual A-arms from 2018 at both ends, suspension travel is class leading and has been increased by 1 inch to 11 inches of travel front and back. The new shocks feature spring rates and valving that are unique to the Ranger crew and its increased capacities. They feature preload adjustment at both ends. Designed with work in mind, 27-9-12 front and 27-11-12 rear 6-ply Maxxis tires are used on all but the entry-level Sage Green model. They're said to be tougher, longer lasting, and quieter on any surface. The updated suspension and taller tires have increased ground clearance by 1.7 inches to a class-leading 13 inches. The steering rack was revised for improved responsiveness to steering wheel input, for enhanced maneuverability in tight terrain. Turning radius has been reduced by a claimed 10%. All Ranger Crew 1000s come standard with electric power steering, which has been revised for a better riding experience according to Polaris. With all of the improvements, the vehicle's claimed dry weight has increased by 300 pounds to 1,936 pounds. Suspension action is typically Polaris plush. Small bumps and rocks simply disappear regardless of speed. Over medium-sized bumps, the very active suspension lets the tires track with the terrain, leaving the occupants virtually impervious to what's going on beneath. While we found the limits of the front suspension on a couple of occasions, it was still rather plush. Truth be told, we left the suspension's preload in the middle setting throughout our testing and never saw a need to mess with it. We could see adding some preload to the rear shocks and softening the fronts if we were towing a trailer with a heavy tongue weight.
Alright, so starting with the exterior, this is the Honda Pioneer. And as far as the cab goes, the Hondas don't have a real cab, so to speak. They have these kind of hodgepodge add-ons. Did a lot of reading of people who own them and have reviews, and they leak, and they're just not a real cab. Now the Can-Am and the Polaris both have real cabs and real doors and roofs and windows. Alright, so I'm going to borrow a little bit of Polaris's propaganda video here, which some people call it, but honestly they own 83% of the market share, and they're not making this stuff up. So if you use an objective mindset and look at the actual specs and things, you'll see why. But let me tell you, this is the Can-Am versus the Polaris. This is the 2018 video, by the way. I couldn't find a 19 video yet, and the 2019 Polaris is much bigger and better than even the 18. But I'm going to be honest, and here are the real 4 major reasons why I picked the Polaris over the Can-Am. First of all, it has air conditioning. The Can-Ams don't. That is a huge thing where we live. Second, the Can-Am was a little bit louder from all the comparisons I've watched and read. The third, shifting lever, as I'm going to explain here shortly. And the fourth is the ride command computer system on the Polaris. That thing is incredible, and I hope to do some trail riding, and the GPS and all the engine functions on there will prove to be very valuable.
1,000-pound towing capacity. Tests also show the most powerful utility side-by-side in the world rides smoother than the Defender. With 12 inches of ground clearance, the Ranger beats the Defender by a full inch. In this test, we put 700 pounds in the bed of each vehicle. Ranger still has clearance over a 7.5-inch cinder block, while the Can-Am, with 36% less ground clearance, fails the test. Watch in this rugged suspension test as the Ranger maintains full control through the entire run, while the HD10 jumps and bucks down the line. Then we loaded 200 pounds of real-world cargo into the beds of both machines down the same run. Watch as the Ranger and its cargo stays flat and planted.
Okay, this was another one of my big things, the smoothest ride. I can attest to that. Having a bad back and bad hips, the Polaris does ride incredibly smooth.
Best-in-class payload, best-in-class towing, 9% more ground clearance, 36% more ground clearance with payload, smoother riding suspension design that performs even with payload. For a big-time investment like this, it's time to make the right choice. Nothing comes close to the hardest working, smoothest riding Polaris Ranger XP 1000.
Okay, so now let's take a look at the Ranger versus the Honda. That's really going to accent some of the things I mentioned, the four-wheel drive switching and the shifting lever. It's going to be accented in here, and the shifting lever is the same on the Can-Am. The four-wheel drive is the same for the Can-Am and the Polaris. They're push button. That's what I really wanted. However, the shifting lever is much different on the Can-Am, where you got to go in a bump out every single time. And as I mentioned before, well, let me say it here quick. I like that. This shows up reverse here as well as the dashboard. And I'm going to tell you, when I review them, one of the other many things that I liked is Polaris is the only one that shifts straight up and down. They all got a hook. The only one of these top three that I compared. And I'm going to tell you, if you've ever done plow work, if you've ever done field spraying, any kind of work at all where you got to go back and forth, those are a pain in the rear. This is really nice in line, and it makes sense. All the way up is high, then low, then neutral, then reverse, then park. Okay, so this I think is also the 18s between the Pioneer and the Polaris, and the Polaris has gotten obviously much bigger and better engine. It jumped up to 82 horsepower. But the real thing I wanted to show you in here is the comparison of the four-wheel drives here and how they function, which is coming up right here in just a jiffy.
Now let's look at the rolling road test, the ultimate test of true, on-demand, all-wheel drive capability. Ranger's Pro-Lock on-demand true all-wheel drive automatically delivers power to both front wheels instantly when your vehicle needs more forward traction. It conquers the rolling road and reverts back to two-wheel drive when traction has been restored. The Pioneer system forces you to stop in order to shift into four-wheel drive, and then stop again to shift into diff lock. Then, after clearing the rolling road, it must stop again to shift back to two-wheel drive. Now let's see how the Ranger controls all that power and provides the industry's smoothest ride. Ranger's industry-exclusive 3-mode throttle control gives you snappy throttle response in performance mode, and in work mode delivers the finesse needed for precise maneuverability.
Okay, so that 3-position throttle mode, the Can-Am also has that. My first pick was the Can-Am until I started digging in them. But anyways, that electronic 3-position throttle switch is also a huge thing on the Polaris and the Can-Am. So I'll be testing this out more. I appreciate you guys staying with the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, and I look forward to making some really cool videos and really doing some of my own real world testing of the Polaris. But this kind of sums up my reasoning on why I selected the Polaris, because it's a fantastic machine. It specs out better in pretty much every way. So stay tuned for some cool riding videos, and I'll see you on the next go around. Kapper out. They're selling them. They're so popular. I mean, it's only today's upper 70s. You know, I'm just kind of hot